Hello everyone, Neve here, and as you can see, I have something a little different going on here. This is not actually a One Piece themed video. This is a kind of a video response to tarot readings from a bitch, and also Sapling Tarot, because I watched Sapling Tarot's video first, which sent me to Cody's video, and then I remembered I watched that video a few months ago, and I guess kind of forgot about it. But and this isn't an actual tag. It was a video that Cody did for connecting tarot decks to the 9 circles of hell, according to Dante, which was fun in and of itself. And then I saw Sapling Tarot's video, and yeah, and I honestly, I just kind of wanted to play along. And the reason I have this One Piece sweater here is because it was hanging on the chair in this room, and it's kind of, it's a skull, so I thought it would be kind of fun and fitting for this tag, even though it's not really a tag. I'm gonna put a tag, but like it's their video, so this is a video response to others, and just kind of me wanting to have a little fun with it. So yeah, and I picked the skull background just for fun, and of course it's from the anime One Piece, but whatever. Anyway, so this is connecting tarot decks or oracle decks, decks basically, with the 9 circles of hell. Yeah, and I think I'm going to call, the hashtag I might put on this is like hashtag Dante's decks, but maybe I'll put a few in there. Anyway, so I wrote down the different things here, and yeah, so let's just get into this. So the first circle of hell is limbo, and there aren't set prompts for these other than the names of the circles of hell, but and I figured I'd just kind of interpret them how I kind of want to interpret them. So Cody picked the Aquarian Tarot, and yeah, I agree with that too, but I wanted to pick something different. So for this one, I decided to go with a deck that I'm not sure about keeping. It's kind of in limbo in my collection. And I chose the Green Witch Tarot. And this is one of my oldest decks, and it's one of my oldest bags that I've made, because this was one of the original bags, and it doesn't quite completely match, but I love the bag, and I'll probably still use it for other things. But this is a deck that I think it's just sort of run its course with me. There's elements of this deck that I just don't. I love, I like this card, but I like the artwork, but this deck feels, I don't know, it feels a little bit like, I don't know, 90s Wicca, maybe. But like this really old world image, and kind of medieval. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to explain here, but there's some sort of vibe of this deck that is just not really connecting with me anymore. And I have other decks that sort of fill this slot, I guess, in my collection. Not that, I can't have more of one type of deck in this. I mean, we've got the Wheel of the Year here, and and this instead of the wheel, it's the Wheel of the Year, and I think that's part of what's it's this kind of stuff that's sort of making me disconnect from it. I celebrate the Sabbats. I am a pagan witch, and my practice started in Wicca. So there's a lot of Wiccan elements still very much in my practice now, and including the Sabbats. But like, I think one of my big issues is this particular holiday, which I'm not going to say how it's. I call this Bjeltana, okay, and I celebrate Bjeltana, and it is an important holiday. My practice now is very much Irish paganism, and I'd always sort of been bothered by this particular spelling and the typical pronunciation of Bjeltna, because it's, I don't know, this is something I've talked about before, and I guess I don't want to get too deep into it when this is just supposed to be a fun video. But yeah, I don't call it Beltane. And I don't know, saying it like that is a little bit of a dirty word to me, but, and yeah, so I also wouldn't, for that reason, I'm not interested in getting the Sabbat series of those Oracle cards. Yeah, because I knew it was going to be like that, and it just bugs me. So, like, I'm not judging other people who know Bjeltna as Beltane or call it that or whatever. That's not really what I'm trying to do. It's just, you know, my practice is Irish paganism, and there's issues there. And Bjeltna is the Irish word for the month of May. Yeah, anyway. But there's stuff like that. There's little things in this deck that are just a little too Wiccan-y. And I don't know, and I just, like, I don't necessarily have any issue, like, you know, I don't have a judgment towards it or anything like that. There are lots of Wiccan elements that are still very present in my practice, and that I connect to, so it's not that, it's just, I don't connect with a lot of this sort of, vibe anymore, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. And then, like, there's one of these cards, there's a stone on there, and it carved into the stone, it says harm none, which is, you know, the Wiccan reed. And you know, it just, here it is, it's the artwork in this is beautiful. I think it just sort of served its time with me, but I'm not sure that I'm quite ready to give it up yet, and that's why this deck is in limbo for me. Yeah, so I kind of talked a little longer than I thought I was going to about this deck, but there we go. So that is the Green Witch Tarot, and that is a deck that is in limbo in my collection right now. Okay, so the next prompt is lust, and I mean, it's pretty obvious what that could entail, and so I don't actually have too many, like, lusty decks. You know, and which seems odd for me, because that seems like something I would definitely have, is like lusty decks, but I don't really have that. So what I ended up picking, and by the way, my selections for these prompts, because these aren't exactly a let's gush over all these decks sort of prompts, you know, because it's the 9 layers of hell. So I'm kind of coming into this with maybe a critique on some of these decks. You know, with the last one, it was this is a deck that might be leaving my collection sort of thing. And it's not a critique on this next deck here. I don't actually have a critique. It's just a sort of harsher element of the deck, I guess, is what I'm trying to lean towards with some of these. So some of these are a critique, especially one of them way further along in this. And but it's kind of just going over that. So, and maybe some of the conversations that we could have around some of the darker elements of decks. Yeah, anyway, so for my lust deck, I picked my Pulp Tarot, and I mean, look at the patch that I put on it. It is very lusty. And I chose this, ooh, there's a hair stuck on this, but I chose this because the kind of lust that is in this deck is not exactly an empowering kind of lust. And by the way, I love this deck, by the way. So it's not, this is definitely a deck that I really very much enjoy. But I kind of think of it a little bit like my patriarchy deck. Yeah, I mean, and here we are with the patriarchy right here. So this deck, it makes me think of like Mad Men or, you know, that sort of era. And it's kind of a sexuality sort of deck, but I mean, not all of them are explicitly sexual, but like it's kind of that male gaze from like the 50s, 60s, 70s sort of vibe there. That's kind of what I get from this. It's kind of a Frank Sinatra-esque, kind of viewpoint. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me, but yeah. But I will say also, my deck was misprinted, and a bunch of the cards are kind of off, which doesn't actually bother me. I could go through and chop off all the edges on all these cards, but I don't mind so much, and it's kind of become part of the charm of the deck for me, so it's not a big deal. And I haven't really seen anyone else have that same off-cut look on their decks, so maybe I just got a bum copy. I don't know. But anyway, so this deck, when I first got it, it exuded sexuality to me, but it was a kind of sexuality that was, like very patriarchy kind of, and very old world, old world. I mean, like mid-century sort of sexuality, sexist even. So, and there's an element of lust and sexuality to this deck too. So, I mean, there we go. And this is definitely a deck that is firm in my collection. I really enjoy this deck. I like it a lot. But yeah, it does have that hyper masculine sort of patriarchy sort of sexuality lust to it. So, very mid-century male gaze, I think. The pinups, etc. So, yeah, so that is my pick for lust. And that is the Pulp Tarot. There we go. So the next circle of hell is gluttony, and I sort of interpreted this as an excessive deck. Yeah, and there were a few things that I could have picked for this. So yeah, an excessive or over the top deck, and I actually grabbed 2 decks. And yeah, so one of the decks I pulled out was the Untamed Mystery Tarot. And this was a Kickstarter that I did. It was like my second Kickstarter. And I picked this deck purely because it was excessive and blingy. And I kind of just wanted to get it as a collector's thing because it's shiny and sparkly and pretty, and I thought I'd really like it for that reason, and yeah, and like every single card has this, foiling or spot gloss. I think that's what it's called here, and even the backs, like, look at that. It's really over the top. And yeah, and I'm not going to show too much of this because now that I've had it and look at the edging, I do really like the edging because it's not that it's not it very that hard metallic sort of edging that's sometimes on decks. This one's actually a really nice edging. But yeah, so this is a little over the top, so much so that sometimes it's hard to even see what the image is if the light is hitting it in just a weird way, and so this is one of the decks that could also be in limbo, but I didn't pick it for limbo because I'm pretty sure I am going to pass this deck along. It is nice, and I got it purely for having a blingy, pretty deck, collector's thing. I plan to do readings with it, and I have done readings with it, but this is a deck that just never really connected for me, and I thought it would. When I bought it, I wasn't getting it thinking I would connect to it, because I sort of figured that it would just be a collector's thing, but I wanted to give it a shot. And the guidebook is actually pretty good and is deeper than I thought it was going to be. And I liked elements of the guidebook for sure. But when it came to actually using the cards, I thought the excessiveness of it sort of overshadowed the deepness of it, and it just I never reach for it for that reason. So this one I will probably give away, and I didn't even make a bag for it. I just used the bag that it came in. And it also came with a cloth too, which, you know, whenever I give away this deck, or not give away, but like sell the deck, I'll probably sell it with the cloth too, and the bag, of course. So yeah, so that is the Untamed Mystery, and I actually have another deck for this too. This is the other deck is a deck that I'm definitely going to keep, and I love it, but it is excessive, and that is my Eldritch Overload tarot. So yeah, this one's pretty cool. I don't think I'll ever get rid of this one. I don't think I'll ever give it away, but it does suffer a little bit from the same sort of issues as the Untamed Mystery Tarot, in that this is a blingy deck. I mean, it's really, really blingy. I'm not sure if the light is really picking up on it. And it's a little too blingy sometimes, because sometimes it is actually difficult to read what's on the card. And I wish the kanji here wasn't in the blingy stuff, because it's really difficult to read. But I do think this kanji is actually Chinese, not Japanese anyway. So yeah, I mean, some of it's the same, because, you know, I got chikara here for strength sort of energy there. Yeah, so it like, this is definitely an over the top deck for sure, but I love it. It's maybe just a little too blingy, you know, that sometimes it's just a little difficult to see, but this is absolutely a deck I'm keeping and I love and I use. But yeah, so it's a little over the top. It's a little gluttonous. So there we go. There is the category for gluttony, and this one was the Eldritch Overload Tarot. So for the next category, I'm actually going to bring out the deck first. I pulled out my Star Trek Tarot for this, and I literally have no negative thing to say about my Star Trek Tarot. But I'm kind of bringing it out as just an example for this one, because there's not really one deck that I would choose for this, though actually there would be. It's just not a deck I have, but the closest connection to it would be this one. And so this category is greed, and I am going to interpret that as sellout decks. And by the way, I don't think that this deck is a sellout deck. So, and kind of my whole interpretation of this one, of this category, is a like basically any fandom decks, you know, like sort of that capitalizing on fandoms, and which I love, by the way. I love fandom decks, and you know, creating merchandise basically in lots of different fandoms and stuff. And believe me, like this is absolutely no judgment, because I am a big fan of fandom decks. I also have my Alice in Wonderland themed deck. I have other fandom decks. So I am a fandom, you know, collector girly. So yeah. But there are times when I think the fandom decks get a little too greedy, and the main deck that I can think of that definitely fits this bill is not this Star Trek Tarot, but the mass market Insight Editions Star Trek Tarot, the one that's the next generation. Yeah, so that one is definitely a cop-out. It's a sellout. It's a total cash grab. And again, I'm not judging anyone who has that deck. I actually, even though I knew it was a cash grab and I knew the problems with the deck, I still had it on my wish list for a while. And I think I ultimately took it off once I received this one, because this is just so well done. This is a fandom deck done right, for sure. And speaking of, the creator of this deck, Mark Adam Baum, just sent out an email to all of the people who have bought his deck, and talked about future projects, future Star Trek tarot deck projects, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, and I won't say too much about that in this video, but we got some sneak peeks of a potential upcoming deck that I am really excited for. So, yeah. So, anyway, my point with this one, going with greed and just choosing fandom decks in general, but I think my ultimate pick is that Star Trek The Next Generation from Inside Editions tarot deck. That one, I think it was definitely a cash grab for sure. Because, like, all the, it was a pip deck, but it was, like, really lazy pips. And they didn't quite make sense. And then also the cards that weren't pip decks, they were mostly just portraits of the characters. And sure, there was some meaning put to this, and some of it I could understand. But ultimately, it was just a cash grab kind of deck. And yeah, and it's, it is what it is. We live in this world. But anyway, so that is my pick for Greed. And that is, in general, fandom decks. And, including Star Trek. But ultimately, on the negative aspect, it's the fandom decks that are cash grabs, which this is not. But there we go. All right. Okay, so the next category is Wrath. Yeah, and I pulled out a deck for that. So real quick, I just want to add in that, like, anything that I'm saying in this video, like, the critiques that I'm having on some of these decks are definitely not meant as any sort of judgment on anyone. They're just, it's a conversation thing. It's something to talk about and think about. Yeah, and part of the reason I am putting this disclaimer in there is that sometimes when I'm rambling off and giving my opinions on things, yeah, I just talk. I'm just talking and I'm having fun, and we're just sort of chatting. But some people can get their knickers in a twist over some of the things I say sometimes, which, part of me just wants to tell them, bite me, but, and I kind of do. But, like, at the same time, for people who are genuinely, like, think that I'm being offensive or whatever, I really mean no offense on these things. They're just the thoughts that sometimes I do mean offense, though. So, like, but in this particular video here, I mean no offense. It's just things that I think about. So anyway, my Wrath deck, I chose the Mars Power Tarot, and this is just pretty straightforward. And I think a lot of people would probably choose this as a Wrath sort of deck, an angry deck, and it's no different for me. Like, if the Pulp Tarot is like my male masculine, if the Pulp Tarot represents the patriarchy for me, oh, sorry about the dog, then this deck really represents fighting the patriarchy. So, and for sure, I mean, like, it's a really amazing deck, but it exudes anger. It really does. Like, this is not a, this is, don't fuck with this deck sort of thing. This deck is a, when you are feeling those angry emotions, like my dog is right now, because someone dares to walk by our house, how dare they? This is the feeling, like, this sort of exemplifies that feeling. Like, it really shows that anger sort of feeling. But, like, to me, this deck is, like, a very, like, righteous anger. And that's why, like this deck is the patriarchy, and this one is fighting the patriarchy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, anyway, so, like, it's a very, righteous sort of anger to me. So, I don't know. It's a good pick for Wrath. So, there we go. That is my pick for Wrath. And I'm going to go see what the dog is barking about. I think it's just someone is walking their dog. But I'm going to go check on her, and we'll do on the next category. All right. Yeah, so that was exactly what it was. Someone was walking their dog, and how dare they? So anyway, the next category is Heresy. I was not totally sure how I was going to interpret this, because I don't really have a lot of, like, overly Christian-y sort of decks. Well, but I mean, we could say tarot in general sort of fits this category because it's this divinatory system, or can be used that way, but there's a lot of Christian iconography to it. So you could kind of do that. It's tarot in general. So what did I pick? Like, I pulled out two decks here, and I pulled out the Star Tarot, and I pulled out the Pagan Otherworlds. And I think I'll pull out the Pagan Otherworlds real quick, because I think my idea when I was picking a deck or decks for this is just I think I was thinking of decks that sort of made me think of old world, sort of old world energies of with the pagan otherworld. It's kind of that, like, it's very ancient, and it's almost like pre-Christian, you know, and in that sense maybe I could have put this in the limbo category of, you know, but yeah, this is a deck that I love, so I went with a different sort of vibe with that one. But yeah, I think my idea with this is that it's very old, like before Christianity, like before this world was, you know, had the Crusaders or you know, whatever. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking right now. And the dog is out there barking at things again, but like at least she's not right up at the right by my door here, so that's fine. Anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. There's the old world, like, sort of pre-Christian attitude is sort of what I got from this. And it was very, I mean, we've got very Adam and Eve looking imagery as well. So, like, there are elements of that for sure. And so, I don't know. I guess... Yeah, I don't know what my thoughts are with this. Like, I pulled it out with, like, the general idea of what I was thinking with this one, but, like, I don't think I'm iterating it very well. Like, but hopefully the vibe makes sense for a heresy sort of thing. So the other one I pulled out was the Star Tarot, and this is where the Pagan Otherworlds is definitely a deck I want to keep in my collection. I do plan to... modify that deck at some point, like probably 10 years from now, honestly, because I just keep talking about it and never doing it. This deck, however, is one of the decks that's kind of on the chopping block and would also be in limbo in my collection, and that is the Star Tarot. And I picked this one for Heresy because it does have a lot of that esoteric, like, sort of vibes to it, and I'm probably going to say, like, the wrong words and stuff, but... yeah, I mean, and we have the cross imagery and stuff. There's a lot to this deck that has a lot of very esoteric Christian sort of, or iconography, and there's other elements of this that just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. And which I've talked about before, so I'm not gonna get into again in this video. And I've had people, like, bitch at me in the comments because they didn't like my commentary on this deck. So, you know, whatever. I have my opinions, and like, yeah, I think that's part of my problem is, like, I'm just here the dog finally comes in. But yeah, anyway, like I think that's part of my problem with, like, I don't, I'm not a very good speaker, you know, so, like, some of the things that I'm thinking just do not come across very well, and people can take offense to it, and part of me, again, I just want to say, like, shut up, you know, but like, if I'm truly offending someone, like, and I feel that, like, okay, yeah, I definitely could have worded that differently, then, you know, I'll have some remorse. But, like, when I'm just saying my opinion and people get all butthurt about it, like, you know, I'm just like, shut up. And, like, yeah, so, you know, I've talked about my issues with some of the Native American imagery in this deck, and you know, I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I don't have a strong a feeling of it one way or the other. It's just there's something about it that doesn't quite sit right with me, and it feels maybe question mark appropriative, but I don't know, you know, it's one of those things that, like, I really want to read the guidebook and get into it. I just haven't yet, and maybe that would give me better insight of this deck, but I chose this for Heresy because of a lot of the, you know, very Christian-y imagery in this, and it is a tarot deck, and it's very esoteric, it's very, you know, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. My words are not here. Ooh, this is a pretty card. There's a lot of really beautiful cards in this deck, though. Like, and I love all the really rainbowy ones. Here's another image. I love a lot of the really rainbowy ones, and like, there's this is a deck that I'm just so, like, it's a giant question mark for me, honestly. I just don't know how I feel about it, and it also is pretty Thoth based, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know. the first thing about Thoth, honestly. And I'm not sure that I really want to do a study of that system. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm honestly very comfortable with the RWS, and I'm interested in doing Marseille study, but Thoth, honestly, is just not something that I really feel connected to. So I don't know, maybe someday in the future. But anyway, this category was a bit incoherent for me, but it's the heresy category, and I chose the Star Tarot and the Pagan Otherworlds. Okay, so the next category was violence, and I picked a pretty straightforward deck. I don't really have a lot of like violent tarot decks, but this is probably the closest one I have, and that is the Murder of Crows. And I mean, it's got violence in the title, basically. Yeah, this is probably my spookiest tarot deck. Yeah, and I got the edition that has the red accents in there. Detailing, maybe that was the word I was looking for, and it's got the red on the back, and I really enjoyed that. Like, there's no way I would have enjoyed the regular version of this deck that is just black and white. The pops of red really help it, but it also gives it a definite violence to it, because it feels like blood, you know, and this is definitely a very violent sort of deck. And I don't use this deck a lot. I really don't. And I think I, in general, don't often need this sort of imagery in my practice. But I do like it with, like, the Bive. That's one of the forms of the Morrigan. You know, it's not totally Bive-y, but it kind of is. And it's, yeah, I do like to use this with her, which is not something I do a lot anyway. So yeah, I think there's not much else I can really say about this. It's pretty straightforward. It's probably my most violent deck. And, there we go. So that is my pick for violence. And that is the Murder of Crows Tarot. All right. So the next category is one that's going to, this is where my preachiness is probably going to come in. If, you know, I probably sounded a little preachy here and there in other parts of this video. And again, I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm just saying my opinions, and people can take that however they want. But, yeah, so this Circle of Hell is called Fraud. And, I didn't write down like a certain phrasing of this, but my mind sort of went to decks that I have or this in my collection that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And so the Star Tarot I could have put in this, but again, that one it's just a big question mark. I don't know, you know. But this one is, in my opinion, definitely very appropriate, and that is the Fairy Wicca Tarot. And this is out of print, thank goodness. And yeah, so this deck is by Kisma Stepanich, and this person, Kisma Stepanich, started their own Fairy Wicca path, spiritual path, but based on Irish mythology, which, you know, right off the bat, that intrigues me and makes me interested in what this person has to say. And when I first got this deck, I didn't really know a whole lot about Irish mythology and Irish paganism. It was a path that I was sort of venturing into, and hadn't kind of formed what my views were yet. And it was an exploration time, and I was still very much in Wicca and things like that. And this deck is... so I was really interested in this deck, and I got it as a gift. It was one of those, like, Sabbath swap sort of things, like Secret Santa, but it was for Yule, and it was a pagan group, you know, and someone got me this deck, which I was super, like, happy about. And there's aspects of this deck I actually like, because a lot of people who critique this deck don't like the art at all. And I don't mind it. It's not, like, the best art in the world, but... you know, I don't mind this art at all. And I don't even mind the borders. it has a certain charm to it that I don't mind. That's not really my critique of this deck. My critique of this deck is many things. I like that it's adding Irish into these, adding the Irish language into the cards, because there's really not very many tarot decks, if any, really, that use the Irish language. So yeah, there's that. So I'm happy to see that. But I don't like that it mixes English with Irish, because Dowen means earth. And this says 4 of Dowen. So I don't like that, because it's the mixing of the language. Like, pick a language, okay? Either put it in English or put it in Irish. Like, pick one. And so that I don't like. Also, the pronunciation guide was kind of incorrect in here. There were just, like, I'm not going to go through and point them out, but, you know, yeah, anyway, I like to have Irish deities, or mythological characters, on cards. I think that's awesome. God, Ardry of Air, and, like, the of in here just messes it up, because it's like, and then, like, the title of this, Nuada of the Silver Hand, but then other things have the title in Irish, and I don't like that. But anyway, if you spend any time in the Irish pagan community, the whole fairy Wicca path and the tarot deck and the books and stuff that are associated with this is not received kindly, because this person obviously is not well informed on Irish mythology, Irish paganism, and it's appropriative. Let's just put it that way. It was very appropriative. And yeah, so it was, I tried to use this deck a lot, and hey, look, that's my name. Yeah, I tried to use this deck a lot when I got it, but I just never fully connected, because there was something about this deck that just didn't sit right with me. And part of it was the like, initially it was a lot of the mixing of the languages that I didn't like, you know. But as I started to delve further into Irish paganism and be a lot more serious about being in right relationship with my Irish deities, and honoring and respecting the history of Ireland and of Irish paganism, the more this deck just, like, I've come to kind of repulse it, be repulsed by it. And so, yeah, so that's my pick for the fraud category, and that's a Fairy Wicca Tarot, which is thankfully out of print. Will I ever get rid of this deck? I don't know. I think I probably just keep it. I just won't use it. I've pulled it out every once in a while just to, because it does have Irish deities on there. I'm like, maybe I can still connect with this deck despite all of its issues. Maybe I can still connect with this. But I don't know, there always just felt like there was something fraudulent about it. You know what I mean? And so that's why I picked it for fraud. Yeah, I don't have nice things to say about this deck, and I know we're always like, you know, when we do even a deck that I don't really like, I know that, you know, a lot of times it's just personal preference, and but sometimes it's ideological issues with decks, and that would be my case with this one. I have an ideological issue with it. All right, so, and the final category is the final layer of hell is treachery. So for this category, I picked a deck that's good, that I like, but it's got usability issues. So it's, and that's what makes it like a tragedy, and it's kind of treacherous, is that it's a good deck, but I can't really use it because, like, it's just, yeah. So I chose the Tarot of the Great Outdoors, and I absolutely love the bag that I made for it. This is one of my favorite bags because this is a cool deck. Tarot of the Great Outdoors is a really nice deck. It's got a really great concept. I went I went like with that patchwork idea, like, you know, there's a card in here that has a woman carrying a blue backpack and it's got patches all over it. And that was my inspiration for this bag, was to use a blue fabric. And this is like a, not velvet, but oh, I can't think of the name. But anyway, velour. That it's a blue velour fabric and very naturey inside here. And yeah, really cool. And I went with all these like camping and national park patches around, and very nature themed. Really love that. And the idea of this deck is fabulous. It's very conservationist, very outdoorsy, and those are all things that I enjoy. There's a lot of activities, like, you know, outdoorsy activities in this. But here is the treacherous part of this deck. This cardstock is by far the worst cardstock I have ever had in a deck. And it frustrates me to no end, because like this, I'm barely moving this deck. Barely. And look how much it's bending. Like, and that didn't even fully go back to straight again. Like, it is, the cardstock on this is like if you took 3 slices of printer paper and like glued them together. It's got the feel and thickness of like 3 pieces of printer paper. Yeah, so it is thicker than printer paper. It's not straight out of the printer kind of paper. But it's like 3 layers of that. So really, really floppy. Like I don't want to bend that too much because I feel like I'm going to tear it. And it really pissed me off when I unboxed. And I knew the cardstock was going to be a problem before I got the deck. But I thought for sure that people were just making too much of a big deal out of this, that it's not that big of a deal. There's no, like, I'm sure it's fine. But I went into it knowing that there were going to be cardstock issues. Here's the inspiration for the bag. All right, there we go. Yeah, I like that one. And yeah, so like on the plus side, this company that made this deck have heard our complaints about it, and as last I heard, they were re-releasing this deck in better cardstock. So will I get the new version? I don't know. I love this card. I am actually this is where I'm from originally. I grew up in Southern California in the desert. I'm actually from 29 Palms, which is the town right next to Joshua Tree. And I used to go to the monument. That's what we called Joshua Tree National Park. I used to go there like all the time. That's where, like, when you're a teenager in the desert and you want to go party and get drunk, you go into the monument. So I've been to several drunken parties in the monument. But anyway, so yeah, it's a really, really cool deck. It's just like I'm barely moving this, and it's like flopping around like crazy. But the cardstock just makes this a tragedy, and because of that, I've put it in the treachery category of the 9 layers of hell. And yeah, so I do want to use this deck more. I'm not sure how, and it's going to piss me off every time I pull it out, and I think that's my main issues with it. But man, I love the bag that I made, though. So cool. Anyway, so that was, we're about like 40 minutes into this, and I've talked way too much about this stuff. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Tarot Readings from a Bitch, and thank you Sapling Tarot for doing these videos. And I hope it was okay that I did my own little version, tag, whatever, of this. Hopefully I didn't piss anyone off with my rambling, as I tend to do in these videos. I get like 30 views a video, but, you know, and hardly any comments. But, you know, sometimes when I get a comment, it's the people who got the panties in a twist because, you know, I said something that they didn't like. So, all right, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.